Hello and welcome to the Athletics Office. I'm Brandon Weaver with my co-host Coach RC, and today we are joined by President of our Saints Youth Football Organization and second grade head coach. Remember the second grade head coach, Rob Ford. So thanks for joining us, Rob.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell our listeners who you are and kind of what you do and your role for the Saints Youth Football Organization.
Yeah, so I guess for starters, right, a parent of three kids here at OCS. My oldest being a sixth grader, Lennox. So he's transitioned into middle school this year.
Yeah.
Have a daughter, Vera, in fifth grade, and then the second grader, Nolan. We've been here. Lennox started as a kindergartner and have been here ever since. So, married to Tara, who probably every time I meet somebody, they already know her. She's a TA in the pre-K classroom here as well. Yeah. And I think in her, was it second year as middle school cheer coach?
That's right. Yeah. And more to come.
Yes.
Hopefully more to come. Absolutely. She's fell in love with it. So
yes, that's a great job.
I would predict more to come.
And then, so when Lennox was going through, did you coach him as well?
So I wasn't head coach of his team, but very involved. Some energetic parents in that grade as well, and was very involved until kind of stepped back and then helped coach Nolan's team.
Yeah.
So
kind of share with us how the organization's set up, the structure of it, and then kind of what you provide in your role.
Yeah. So we have. 8 board members strong that are governing Saints Youth sports that encompasses football and cheer. Mm-hmm. So I'll get in. I can talk a little bit about the history.
Yeah, please do.
Kind of transitions well with that. So the program started in 2020. Mm-hmm. Kind of got kicked off by Ryan and Susan Nelson.
Yep.
And who was it? Coach Brooks Stevenson at the time. Mm-hmm. So, they got the program started with support of OCS and the board and kind of the approvals that they needed to get to make that happen, and started with 2 football teams. Mm-hmm. They were able to put together 2 teams in year 1 and get started. I've got some notes. They had 39 players that year. Mm. And from there, right, it was about growth.
Yeah.
Getting people interested and getting the word out. And I think they were kind of shocked even at how well it went.
Yeah.
As that transitioned into 2021, the next year they changed the leagues and had 3 teams. So that's when we got involved as second graders. So they had a first and second grade team, a third and fourth grade team, and then a fifth and sixth grade team. They added cheer that year as well. So from year 1, they went from 39 students to 125. So pretty drastic improvement, and it just showed them that the need was there, the interest and desire was there. So from there, it's really just been building off all the initial work that really Ryan, Susan, Coach Brooks, and then Coach Schmidt was a pretty big influence in that program as well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I can't say enough about Ryan and Susan Nelson. I'm glad you brought them up. And I remember those conversations of getting it started and working through some logistical things and responsibilities, and they're incredible. They're still part of our community. We're thankful for that, and part of our wrestling community as well, and have been such a huge blessing there for us. And it's been a game changer, I feel like, for our school culture and for our obviously our football programs and cheer programs. Before that, obviously, our teams are all over the place, right? They're split. They're playing in different leagues and all that. To have something, they've got that school pride where they're competing on our campus. They wear their jerseys to school and things like that. I think that's just been an awesome thing, and I think we're starting to reap the benefits of that. And you can see with the numbers that we're getting in middle school and high school now, have a very successful program, and one that is has a lot of kids that are coming out and really excited and have already been coached well and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's been great for us.
Yeah. So, Rob, how did you get involved in youth football?
Yeah, started, organically. We were playing as first graders with my oldest in Friday Night Lights in flag football. And then, through really my wife's connections, heard about the first year of Saints Youth Football. Mm-hmm. And we were immediately intrigued. Not that my wife was super excited about putting our first grader in tackle football,
Yeah.
but she was really intrigued and excited about, hey, there's a OCS youth program.
Yeah.
Is really how she heard it, and what she thought about it was like, hey, we're really interested in this. And she ultimately ended up on the phone with Susan Nelson, talking about the program and talking about what youth football looked like. So we jumped over from flag football into second grade tackle football. There was the definite need for coaching, so I kind of walked in, and not that tackle football is my expertise by any means, but love coaching and love being involved with the kids. So jumped in, started coaching, and it didn't take long to realize how much Ryan and Susan had on their plate.
Yeah.
In running what was a growing organization and an evolving program. So Susan connected with Tara, Ryan connected with me, and it really has kind of grown from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So today, how many students participate in the organization, both between football and cheer?
Yeah. So last season, I made the note here, so we ended up, the league we're in now is even expanded into flag football. So kindergartners and first graders have the opportunity to be a part of Saints Youth playing flag football all the way through sixth grade. So last season, we had 252 students registered between football and cheer.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Stretching from kindergarten to sixth grade. So the program has size, there's a lot of moving parts, and has more than just me helping run it.
And you guys have switched leagues a few times, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that initial 2-team program that started was playing in a league called Red Dirt. Bunch of schools in that league, opportunity to kind of fit in wherever.
Yeah.
And then as they went to 3 teams that second season, they moved to Washita Valley, moved to Chisholm Trail, which was schools similar to OCS's size, but think north towards Blackwell, Perry, Guthrie.
Short drives, right?
Some of them, I vividly remember, getting Chick-fil-A at 6 a.m. and watching the sunrise about Stillwater. So they were in that league for 2 years, and then as the program grew, we went from multiple grade-based teams, think first, second, third, fourth, to the point that our rosters had gotten so big, we needed to find a league that could support individual grade-based teams.
Yeah.
That's when we went to Washita Valley, which think Elgin, Tuttle, Blanchard. And then we just found a better fit in the league we're currently in Oklahoma Integrity, that is Jones, North Rock Creek. Which we've actually, will be news to some people, Washita Valley and Oklahoma Integrity in this offseason have now joined.
Okay.
So the league has grown, will allow for a couple different north-south divisions, be a little bit more competitive as you think getting to a championship or the finals. But it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I didn't ask you this beforehand, so I'm going to have to take some time to think, but how many coaches, how many parents that are helping out as coaches on the football or cheer side? Do you have like a rough number of how many?
Yeah, it's a big number. You're looking at 25 to 30 football coaches. If you've got 6+ teams, we're running 5 to 6 coaches per team. And some of our rosters, I think the sixth grade roster last season was almost 30 kids strong. So managing, practice time, it takes a handful of really motivated dads to make the football season go round. And then, it's very similar on the cheer side, maybe a few less moms, per grade. But if you think about trying to line up and organize 20 kindergarten girls on the sideline,
Mayhem.
it takes a few motivated moms to make all that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny to me when I'd come to a practice and I would see all these dads out there, and I'd be like, man, I can't hire enough high school coaches. And there's a million dads out here, helping out, which was awesome to see, just giving back to the kids and things like that. So it's great.
Rob, so what does it look like when youth sports, in this case, football, it's done right? Like, what is a healthy perspective for each role, for coaches, parents, players? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. A lot to unpack. Probably we'll walk through some of it. I'll start by saying that I'm not a coach by profession. Didn't go to college thinking about it. Don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. Haven't evolved over time. Maybe like you guys have. Can probably speak to a little bit. So I think for me, one of the first things I recognized was I need to know more, about what youth sports looks like when it maybe is done right.
Yeah.
I recognized that my past in sports, maybe I didn't have great coaches, even though I looked up to most of them and think that they shaped me positively throughout life, but maybe there are different ways of doing things. So I really started diving in, over the years, starting early, even in flag football when it was like, oh, hey, I'm going to be coaching these first graders.
Yeah.
How does this get done right? So by no means do I think I'm an expert. And my right and what I think's right may not match everybody, right? Like I see a bunch of books on your shelf and they probably don't all say the exact same thing. So
They're just for show.
So with that said, I dove in and, tried to find material that matched a little bit of just where my heart was at and educate myself on, what some other people and professionals, and call them experts, think that, could be done right in youth sports. So, along the way in reading and trying to discover what that looks like, I believe that there's not a one size fits all approach. Every kid, every team, every scenario can be a little bit different on goals and expectations, whether it's a club team or a Y team. Like everyone kind of has a different approach and perspective. But for me, when I think about the framework of what it needs to look like when it's right, there's some things that start to come together that you have to have. Right? It has to be safe, right? We're working with youth and kids really throughout all sport. Like it really does have to be safe. One thing that we really push hard is it also has to stay fun, right? Like we have youth kids, right? They show up to play. Yeah, we're going to work hard, but it has to stay fun. Yeah. And then, as you think about little kids learning a sport, what are you achieving if you're not like thinking about development? Right. And whether that's exactly, maybe it's a combination of developing the sport, but also developing just the person, the youth athlete, and teaching them so many things that you can teach them. A lot of opportunities when you get kids together, what you can teach them. I think a lot of opportunity comes out of sport naturally when you think about what our purpose here is. Maybe if we shift that purpose away from how good can we be, right? How do we go win games and win a championship, and more focus on like, are we here to develop the other aspects of the person?
Yeah. A lot of times that's kind of a not secondary but the winning will come if you kind of focus on the developing all the other things. It's a byproduct of all the other work that's put in. So let's kind of focus on each role. So, what advice would you give parents? You guys have a parent meeting. You put information out there for parents. How do you educate parents? And what advice would you give parents who are getting their kids involved in youth football or have been involved in youth football?
Yeah. I think it's challenging, and I'm humbled in the aspect of, I don't want to tell anyone how to parent, and everybody's situation, and, all kids are different, all parents are different. So all we really like to do is kind of put it out there, and try to feed and guide kind of what we can control, our culture, the right way. So one of the interesting things I found in some of the reading was a study done on the statistics. I'm sure you guys have probably seen it too, about how many kids really go to the next, call it scholarship to D1 level, right, out of youth sports. Right. And all the way, I think the reference, I wrote it down here, is about 1 in 1,000 high school students become a scholarship level athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when you take that study to parents and you ask parents of youth athletes, do you think your child is going to be able to make it to the next level?
Yeah.
Right? So you go from 1 in 1,000 to about, it says 30 to almost 50% at times parents will tell you they think their kids can make it.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you've got a huge discrepancy of reality versus expectation. So just understanding, how difficult it is to become and make a life out of playing sport.
Yeah.
I think knowing that to start with can help you shift your focus on, hey, why do we really spend our time and have our kids in youth sports? So I like to kind of start with that challenge of, most of us aren't. Most of our kids aren't. We love them. They're great.
Yeah.
They probably are pretty good at what they do,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make them at that like extra special level. And if they are, they'll probably get there anyway. But let's focus on everything else.
Yeah.
So I believe we take the opportunity with sport to learn so many of the other things.
Yeah.
I've wrote some of them down because I can't speak to them all to memory, but a lot of the things that come up, we talk about leadership, character, communication, accountability, right? They get to take risks in a way that they don't really get to take in normal life.
Yeah.
They get to try things, teamwork. You get things like, when you think about character traits in life, such as grit, curiosity, self-control, determination, it's really things that we can foster in sport that gets hard to foster anywhere else. So if we think about it, that's why we're playing sport, right? We're going to show up and we're going to develop a lot of these character traits. I think that's my advice for parents is, and you just said it, like, focus on those things, and the skills and the growth and the actual aptitude in sport will come if it comes, and it may not come.
Yeah. I mean, I like you said, sports offers adversity that kids have to, overcome. And it also offers adversity and success, right? Because pride starts getting in there, ego starts getting in there, and you have to speak to that because maybe you've got a group that is more physically mature maybe than some other teams you're playing. And like I remember this in basketball, it's like, well, it's not necessarily my coaching. Maybe I just, I got better, Jimmys and Joes than what, the other teams got. And so I have to kind of check myself as a coach and the ego that I have and what humility is there. And then also for our kids. And, I think the point of sports is I want to put my kid in sports, not so they can get that scholarship or not so we can get medals and championships. Like all that would be great if it works out. But I want to put my kids in sports because that's the arena where they're going to learn so many things that I can't manufacture somewhere else, right? Or even in class, right? I mean, there's, in school, there's going to be adversity, right? With grades and studying and things like that. But it's different and should be used in conjunction with what's going on in the classroom to really help these kids grow and develop. Because if they don't go through that adversity, it's going to be a difficult adulthood at some point. And so we as parents can kind of help them do that. And I think, to kind of add on to that, what parents should do is bring this perspective to kids, right? I remember being a little kid and something would happen, right? You cry or you're so upset about it because your focus is here, right? That one time. And as a parent, you'd be like, hey, life's bigger than just this one moment. It's going to be okay. Or, I think about kids that maybe grow slower than others.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe they're frustrated because they're not able to do some of the things that other kids are able to do, and just bringing perspective to that. But one other question that I want to kind of give you an opportunity to address for parents, so you guys have flag football in kindergarten and first, and then they can start playing tackle, right? You get parents who probably said, well, I don't want to get them started that early, concussion and injuries and things like that. I think there are some things that you guys have done to educate about that, to, teach proper technique and things like that. So just speak to those parents who have that, that's kind of holding them back, getting their kids started early in youth football.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely hear it, right? It comes up and it's talked about, and the reality is it's a legitimate and real concern, right? Like, in not just in youth football, but think think flag football, think soccer.
Soccer, yeah.
You have kids running, playing hard, and impacts and falls, and most of the time in most of youth sports, it's impact with the ground. That becomes the actual deliverer of the concussion. But so, all the way back to Coach Stevenson, and then as we think about current Coach Roof,
Yeah.
And the teaching and practices of tackle football. So there's a program now called USA Football. I believe, I don't want to speak, I don't know 100%. I believe founded by Pete Carroll, all the way from the NFL level. So it has NFL level support on coaching and teachings, and so the material is great material, and it's coached all the way from the top level of the sport down. So it's how Coach Roof teaches it as well. We've transitioned into teaching this exact methodology of tackle technique, which is a little bit different than historically how, if you played tackle football 20 years ago, it does look a little bit different. And it's specifically designed around safety. It's around recognizing that even though we have a helmet on, the helmet's there just in case. Let's teach the techniques to keep the head in a safe position at all times. So there really is a lot of focus on that, even all the way down to the second grade level. And then, we take that training to all coaches. They go through concussion protocol training and all that stuff as well, just for all the just in cases. But, all the way from the practice level to how we design and implement practices, what drills look like, right? We aren't just tackling all practice long, right? There are some levels of contact and impact, but we limit them as much as possible, right? Like we recognize, no, we don't want these kids clanging and banging and hitting heads every practice. So, so what, from 2020 to what we are now, 2026, 5-6 years in the program, there have been a couple diagnosed instances of concussion, and think a couple hundred kids playing across 2 practices a week, 8 to 10 games a year. I think that statistical level of like head injury is pretty fascinatingly good.
Absolutely.
It's interesting through the season lasting from, July almost to November, where we see most of our injured kids say they come to practice or they can't come to practice or can't play. They've been injured either on the playground, riding a bike, right? Like I would say, knock on wood, the program has been incredibly safe with regards to injuries kids have sustained actually playing football. There is obviously, they're out there being physical, they're playing, they're being kids. Excuse me. Things can happen.
Right.
But it's interesting. I've often thought even of my kids, like when they show up and they put their helmet and their pads and their gear on, I'm like, this is the safest they ever will be. Like, they've come from the trampoline or riding the bike and we're yelling at them to put their helmets on. Like, when they're at football and they get geared up, I really do personally don't have any, problems talking to parents and going, look, like, I really do believe this can be done safely. And that we do it safely.
Well, I think it's good for parents to just hear the purpose, that it's like we're just, parents aren't just throwing them out there and, okay, we're just going to, kill each other. Like there's a plan, there's a purpose, there's even a curriculum that you guys are using to help mitigate that risk. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and we do. Like, look, think about second grade, and, as I had coached that team last season, like the first couple of weeks of practice, like we literally just spent time learning how to move in that gear, right? Like we did somersaults down the football field, like just teaching them how to learn and move and get comfortable in the equipment. Like we don't just go straight to like, hey, you try to tackle each
Oklahoma
other.
drill.
We do take it, some method to the madness and really want to teach them how to do it properly and do it safely.
So I know you talked about curiosity. What advice would you give coaches that are coaching youth football to kind of explore that curiosity, let kids, kind of do those things? I know me and Coach Weaver coach a youth basketball team.
Coach is a loose term there.
Very loose term. Very loose term. But we're trying to foster a good environment for them and things like that. So how would you, what advice would you give those coaches?
Yeah, so, for coaching, what a hard job, right?
Yeah.
Like one with kids and expectations and a lot of things, very hard. So we start with not just, parent education before season gets started, but we try to get in front of coaches as well. And, my guidance to start with is, as a coach, develop your why, right? Really start thinking about, why am I coaching and what do we want to achieve? And with the thought process of, there are all these things we're going to work on that have nothing to do with winning, so how do you create that environment for these kids to show up, have fun, and learn and work on, being a good person, being a good teammate, working through adversity. A coach needs to think about how they're going to handle those things ahead of time as well, right? Because it can get hard when you've got 20 kids.
Yeah.
Practice can be stressful. Games can be really stressful. Think about how you as a leader will handle some of those things ahead of time. So coaches also get, and we recognize, right, the culture of, we all want to win, right? There's no denying that we're not showing up to compete and attempting to win, right? And I think a lot of coaches feel a ton of pressure around being responsible for that. Like, they think they're going to get judged by, winning or losing. And in fairness, they might, right? There's probably some people, kids, parents, whoever, that probably do get upset about winning and losing, but we really want them to focus. And our advice is always like, what we're doing is so much bigger than the scoreboard, right? And when you think about it that ahead of time, it can really ground you and give you the ability to stay focused on the little things that matter more than the score.
Yeah. What advice would you give to these kids that are going through your program? And obviously you've got, maybe kindergarten, first, second graders starting out there, but then as they progress and talk about maybe the conversations you've had with kids that are both having success or maybe, struggling a little bit, like what advice do you give those kids?
Yeah, football can be hard. And I think it's one of the special things about football. And as you said, it is the vehicle to give adversity that's really hard to find somewhere else. So knowing that, my advice and kind of how we try to roll kids into football is starting in a place of just giving it a chance. If a kid has never played football, all they know about football is quarterback, running back, and touchdowns. And what we really work towards doing is like, you don't have to be the fastest kid on the team. Right? You don't have to be able to throw and catch to play football and have a role on a team that really matters.
Yeah.
Right. And specifically as you get a little bit older and you start kicking, you think about sixth grade football in our program, and it really is like every single 11 people out there matter, right? Like on offense, one person moves, false start, right? So you think about a kid feeling empowered and important that may still not be the greatest athlete on the field. He still has a place on that team that very specifically matters.
Yeah.
And, so I think that's some advice to kids that I always give is football can give you purpose and a place in sport that I think a lot of other sports can struggle to do. A kid can go play basketball, and if there's an all-star on the team, the all-star really kind of can do everything.
Yeah.
So I think football gives an interesting difference in sport in that, every kid matters. We got 11 spots on offense and 11 spots on defense. The opportunity to fill one of those spots is really, really high.
Yeah. And special teams and things like that. as well.
All the things, and it gets overwhelming for coaches to think about all the things they have to teach.
Yeah.
To show up to a game on Saturday and think that I've got 11 spots that kids know what to do can be a challenge.
Absolutely.
So take us through a game day experience with Saints Youth Football. I know I've been to a couple of St. Youth football games, and it is an experience.
Yeah.
My daughter was on the cheer team, and the kindergarten, first grade, we played the early slot a lot of the times. So it starts even before 8 o'clock kickoff. Like, you guys are here probably, 6:30?
Yeah, back to sunrises. I've seen a few sunrises on OCS's football field. So, yeah, it's an incredible experience. I think one of the really special things about the program kind of is the experience as a whole. But it does. It starts with really our board is here at sunrise, getting things set up. A lot happening from press box to water to food trucks. How fun navigating parking is, on campus.
Especially here, yeah.
There are just a lot of things that we kind of get moving as everyone starts showing up about 8. Kickoff for game 1 is at 9, and then you've got 6 games to accommodate through the day.
Yeah.
At about an hour and a half each. So, you've got the visitors coming and going all day long. You've got OCS people coming and going all day long. It can be a lot, right? We need announcers, we need clock operators, we need chain operators. These are all volunteers on top of the 30 plus coaches we talked about. You add cheer to that, 50 plus parents already volunteering to coach. It is a big undertaking, but we've been blessed with, at times it can be hard to find all those people, but we've always been blessed with people to step up and do that. We've really transitioned this last season to, finding high school kids and other kids that are interested in, putting their time in, albeit we pay them a little bit, but they really are dedicating, and whether they've got a little brother on the team or a little sister, they're there supporting, and we've kind of leveraged that to help, take some of the burden off the parents of, a dad might be willing to be the announcer, but he also wants to just sit and watch.
Right.
So that we've kind of balanced that pretty well as well, but, so that's kind of the managing, running, like board level, what it takes to make it all happen. But then just to the experience aspect of it, right? Like we've got 20 cheerleaders on the sidelines, right? We've got the helmet blown up. Kids get to run out, right? We've got the music going. We've got an announcer, and from the aspect of the game, right? Our referees are generally referees that referee on Friday nights.
Right.
Like, it is a real football experience all the way down to first graders.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Thinking about advice to kids, like talk about give it a chance because I think you'll love it.
Yeah.
Right. We have had very few over the past 5 years kids come in to football and then not come back the next year. Not that we haven't had a few.
Yeah.
But when you think about 150 to 250 kids over those years, like, it has been overwhelmingly successful in how kids enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to give you that opportunity because, it takes a village to run something like this, right? And if it just falls on 1 or 2 or 5 or 8 people of the board, it's almost impossible to get it done. And thankful to be a part of a community that does that, but we're always looking for people to get involved, to make sure that these things can go off, to give a good experience for the kids, right? That's what we're really trying to do. And so I know it takes a lot of work. I'm sure your board, again, as early as you guys have to get up there and to be up there all day and then to close everything down is incredible. So, kudos for that. So talk to us about the environment of officiating that you're seeing. I don't even know if we did this the first, year or two, but we kind of connected and gave you the commissioner that we use to be able to get officials and everything. So, just talk about that and what that looks like, and even some of the, you don't have to go into detail, but the difficulties you've seen and how coaches or parents interact with officials as well.
Yeah. Very thankful that we're not now directly, our board, right? Think about OCS is not directly responsible for securing officials.
Okay.
That was something Ryan and Susan were doing in season, I think, 1 and maybe even 2. And So our youth league that we play in, Oklahoma Integrity, they go out ahead of the season and secure officials,
Okay, great.
a group of officials. It is a paid position, even to the level of our referee coordinator. Um, if there's anything complained about all season long amongst every town, it is officiating.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with the root cause of there's just not enough officials.
Right.
We can talk a little bit about maybe why that is. When I think about who these people are, who's officiating games, right? They're not professional officials, right? This isn't their day job.
Yeah.
They're all doing it either because they like it, right? It's a hobby or a passion of theirs, so it's a second endeavor in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about my hobbies and things I do, like I only do them because I enjoy them.
Yeah.
And when you look at, and you kind of were alluding to fans and how they're treated, like there are most games that someone's upset with the official, right? One side or the other. One side's not happy. Could even be all the way onto the field with the players and the coaches into the stands with the fans.
Yeah.
And so I can relate to the challenges it takes to get excited about coming and spending your day, right? Because in our world, the youth officials show up at 8:30 and they don't leave till 5:30, right? They're out there on the field refereeing games all day long.
Yeah.
So huge commitment on their part. And when you step back and think like, how much did they enjoy that, right? They got coaches in their ear all day long.
Yeah.
Fans kind of in their ear most of the day. And when really all they're there for is because they love it, right? They want to be a part of the next generation of the sport. They want to be a part of teaching kids how to play it properly. Like that's what I really see is the majority of, there's exceptions to this always, but the majority of the guys that show up and girls that show up to referee youth football, like they just love the sport and they love kids and they want to teach them. So I would challenge everybody, coaches, parents, everyone to think about maybe impacting that positively, right? Recognizing that their job's really hard. They love what they're doing, and give them a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
If you've never officiated anything, maybe do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's super hard to do.
Yeah.
And football is a complex sport on top of it with a very long rule book. And then we ask them to bend to that rule book, right? Think about officiating second grade football, right? You can't call it by the rule book.
Yeah.
Right? You got to let false starts go. You got to let positions go, formations go. But then you got parents and coaches that want to complain about a very specific missed call.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what an impossible ask,
Yeah.
of officials in reality to say, get it perfect.
Yeah.
So that's my view. I think there's a ton of people that give their time and love the sport. But there's still a massive shortage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that in a previous episode. And, what I've seen over my time, specifically in basketball, but even as an athletic director is, you had these groups of officials kind of moving through. Well, our officiating, pool has gotten smaller, has gotten older, right? Some of those guys are getting, and then new guys were coming in, but they were treated so badly. They got out. And so now we've got this gap in people. And I've told people before, we've had to move high school games because there weren't enough officials from a Friday night to a Thursday night, different things like that. We've had to play a day game before just to be able to have officials for that. I mean, I think the number one thing people need to understand is the games don't happen without officials.
Yeah.
We can have coaching, we can have players, and unless you just want a scrimmage environment, it's not happening. And, what we need to be teaching our kids, and this is including me, in the times that I get frustrated with officials, it's, it was a bad call, good. There's the whole Jocko Willink, good. Then we get an opportunity to be able to bounce back and there was another bad call, good. We can respond and we can show people our maturity and things like that and go through this adversity. And it's bad all game, good. We know what to go through that is, the unfairness of it, and just be able to keep our calm and our composure and things like that and move forward. And yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, we put on a 2-hour practice for our youth basketball team, and I'm like exhausted at the end of it mentally. I can't imagine being out there all day in the scorching heat, on turf and making all these calls and hearing from all these people. It's definitely a difficult task, and one that I hope that people in our community and communities that we participate with are appreciative of that very, very difficult job. So
Absolutely.
I mean, we were practicing yesterday and scrimmaging, and us coaches are calling the game, and I'm like, safe. And they're just like
question mark.
Good, like, coach. No, he's out, and I'm like, no, he's safe. But like, that's an opportunity for us to say, hey, listen, yeah, we're gonna put you in those different circumstances. Like, oh yeah, he's safe. He was probably out, but I called him safe. How are you gonna bounce back from that?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough to do. I took a sports officiating class in college, and I got to referee intramural basketball. I loved it. The fans didn't love it, but I did.
You missed your calling.
Yeah, I was calling everything out there. I was teeing people up too. But yeah, so moving on from officiating, is there anything that you wish that schools could do better to help the youth sports environment?
Yeah, great question. From our perspective, Saints Youth Sports is incredibly thankful for what OCS does do for us. Even though there is a distinct separation, we aren't part of the program, we aren't directly supported, et cetera. But there's a very dotted line, and we feel grateful for the support we get. One from being able to represent on Saturdays on the field, all the way to wearing a Saints uniform. I think our program really feels empowered in the connection to the school. In the elementary, I think it's super powerful. A story that really comes to mind happened just this last season. I got a text from Coach Schmidt, and him and a few of the other players had literally on the field pregame for their playoff game, right, shot a video to us like wishing all the Saints Youth Sports good luck in their Saturday playoff games. Like, sent that to everybody, and it just erupted, right? Like, the connection, like, it's amazing. All the way to the kids wearing uniforms to school on Fridays and Spirit Days, and the days that high school's playing, and the little boys are wearing the uniforms. Like, just the pride that they get and they're connected to the school is really cool to see. So we're blessed on that front. We feel grateful. But youth sports a monster, and I think there could always be more done. We have insight to one of the programs in the youth football league. He's actually kind of the coordinator of the league. He, in his school program, it's a paid position for him as their youth sports coordinator. So seeing what they can kind of do with someone really focused on it, thinking about it, like, I think is something we can always all think about, like, what could be done more. Right. I'm not saying that, our environment is in a bad place or anything like that, but, we can always challenge ourselves to think about how to make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. When we've had some conversations about this, and, I'd love to be able to take the time to kind of talk to those OCS parents that are going through youth leagues. And, we've had discussions about that as a school. When RC came on board, he's got a lot of different responsibilities. We talked about, does that expand into youth? We think there's great opportunities there. And I think specifically for football, when you're talking about one team per grade, it's a little bit more clear cut. And just so everybody knows, so we kind of have the agreement that football uses our field for game days, but practices elsewhere. So the board helps secure a place elsewhere and practices and things like that. And for a few different reasons. One, obviously, we're using our fields to a large extent, and especially the longer you go in the fall, the less daytime that you have, right? So sometimes our high school is ending when the sun's going down, right? And so sometimes that can become tricky. But we get calls a lot about, specifically basketball and baseball, probably youth teams and there's multiple per grade, right? And then how do you open that up? How do you, in our gym, you give them access to basically our entire middle school if you let somebody in the gym. We don't get a lot of questions about volleyball, maybe a little bit about soccer, but usually they have some other sites. And then, full transparency, take basketball. There may be 3 or 4 teams per grade. Do you want to be involved in placing kids on those teams? Because that can be a tricky thing. And some teams like, well, we've already got our kids, or we are looking to grow. And right now it's kind of just parents communicating and coordinating. And it's not always the best, right? I mean, there's opportunities there. There's also risk as a school. And, having that clear line can say, hey, when there are these issues, here's who you're communicating with. These issues, you can communicate with us. Saints wrestling, we allow to, it's kind of the opposite. We allow to practice here, but they do their tournaments and events elsewhere. And so I think it's something we have to continually look at and getting feedback from the boards and coaches and what can be done and balance that with the facility usage here and just the margin of a person being able to oversee that. But I've heard that a few schools are doing that, and I think that's a great way to bridge that gap because, again, we're reaping the benefits of a lot of the work that's been going on in the youth. So makes us look like better coaches, right? When we get to middle school and high school, they've already been playing. So that's great. So if you were the National Youth Football King for a day and you could just do whatever and everybody had to do what you say, okay, don't let this go to your head. Just give it a few minutes, all right? What would you change? What would you adjust? What would you do in that case that you think would help the game and help kids?
Yeah, great question. Clearly not qualified to be king. Wouldn't want that responsibility either. But if I did, the first thing I would change is the weather. Right? Like July and August is talk about adversity.
I say king, not God.
Okay, so if we take the weather away, I think back to the tenor of quite a bit of our conversation around the focus. I would try to impart everyone, right, from parent, coaches to kids, to shift their focus towards the purpose, right, and back to what I like to say. What I think resonates is what we're doing is bigger than the scoreboard. So I think a lot of things take care of themselves, right? If we just shifted that focus away from the priorities being winning, right? You start getting back to coaches and players controlling what they can control, right? A lot of times, like you said, like the wins and losses are often out of your control, right? And think about a second grade team showing up to play a group that's just bigger and faster and more athletic. Odds are you're not winning. It doesn't matter how good you play, you're just outmatched physically and athletically. So the win's really already off the table, right? So now how do you navigate that game and do all of the things and get all the things you want out of that game? Because the win's already gone. So if your focus was always on that, I think a lot of things would shift. And it's interesting. I think about it because you hear it all the time. A kid plays a game, basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is. Let's say they go to grandma's who wasn't there, or even sees a friend who wasn't there. What do you ask them?
Did you win?
Did you win?
Yeah.
Right? It's universal.
Yeah.
Right? So that trickles into the culture. That trickles into what kids hear and think matters the most. Right? So if I could change anything, it would be a recognition of everyone that really isn't the purpose, right? If I was to ask a niece or nephew that played a game, like my thought, like I can be guilty of it at times, but it really should shift to be like, how'd you play, right?
Did you have fun?
Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Right. There's so many other things, and not that did you win is terrible, but it just starts to add on and chink on to that culture of what kids hear. Then they attach that to what they think matters the most.
Yeah. Well, I just think about the sad things that happen where you'll see these videos, right? Parents getting in fights and kids getting in fights. I mean, heck, we just saw in an NBA game the other day that 2 NBA teams got into a fight. or parents going after officials, coaches going after officials, and things like this. Nobody starts their child's athletic career and be like, you know what, I'm ready to yell and get in a fight with somebody over
Yeah.
what's about to happen here. And it's like, man, if we can all just take a breath and have the perspective of, kind of all the things that we've discussed, because at the end of the day, you just want it to be a positive experience for the kids.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're winning all the time. Somebody's got to lose. Doesn't mean that you're scoring all the points or doing all those things. But it's like, to not have mom go attacking officials, maybe, a big win, and just, again, just a positive experience that they've enjoyed and are able to go through adversity and learn all those things, I think is incumbent upon us as the adults
Yeah.
to bring that environment for all the kids.
So there was a TED Talk I stumbled across the guy's named John O'Sullivan. The TED Talk is Changing the Game.
Yep.
And one of the things that he specifically really hones in on is that kids really, from their parents and everyone that watched them play a game, all they really want to hear is that you enjoyed watching them play.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a positive environment. There's not judgment and pressure and disappointment.
Yeah.
They just want to hear, gosh, that was fun.
Right.
I loved watching you play.
Yeah.
That can also kind of foster the burnout, right? As
Oh,
they
yeah.
get older,
Yeah.
If your parent is saying like, hey, I really liked watching you play, like that could drive that kid to continue to do it. They may not be the best, but
Yeah.
they're still there, you know?
If they burn out, you
Yeah.
never know.
Right.
So is that whole concept and that TED Talk specifically changed my interaction with my kids.
Yeah.
And it made me recognize, specifically as a parent coach,
Yeah.
right? Like, I kept coaching when we got in the truck,
Yeah.
right? Like,
It's hard not
guilty.
to, yeah.
Right,
It's hard
right.
not to, yeah.
Guilty.
and I realized, and he was kind of shutting down from it. Like, he didn't want to keep talking about what he could do better.
Yeah.
Right? We just went through a whole practice working on what you could do better.
Yeah.
And it really shifted our conversations post practices and post games in such a positive way
Yeah.
that I recognized. And what has happened is it may take a day or two, but then he'll come to me and ask,
Mm-hmm.
hey, could you work with me on this?
Yeah.
Instead of getting that pressure right away and then emotionally shutting down,
Yeah.
he knows that he's supported and that you loved it no matter what.
Yeah.
Then they'll come ask.
Yeah.
And that's when the magic
Yeah.
right happens. They're seeking it out and they want to get better, and then you've got something.
Yeah. I've got an 8th grade son, and I helped out his team, and I've coached their youth teams in the past like that. And it is a difficult position to be in. When does that stop, right? When is dad and coach and those type of things? And that's something that I'll continually have to learn over the next 4 years. And I've got 5 kids, so over the next however many years, hopefully, Lord willing. And but it is a difficult thing. I believe that John O'Sullivan has kind of an organization called Changing the Game and website and all those that could have some really good resources for some people. Correct?
He really does, and so Cody Bridwell and I, Cody being our vice chair of the board, we actually connected with the organization, and he and I ended up having a phone call with John O'Sullivan.
Awesome.
Because we were really thinking about, hey, it's great to have, say, me and Cody talking about this, or the 3 of us talking about this, but how much better would it be heard if someone like this came and spoke to even our coaches, right? Put on a little clinic learning environment for our coaches. And not that he was against it, he was very open to it.
Yeah.
But he is involved in a lot of ways of trying to move the needle in youth sports. So check it out. Changing the Game's pretty easy to remember.
Yeah.
A lot of information out there.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, are there any points that you want to make that we haven't hit on yet?
Look, we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we have.
So I mean, nothing that I specifically, need to keep harping on. Yeah.
I mean, I just want to take the time and hopefully, I've expressed this even outside of this podcast, but you, your board, the parents, I think have done an incredible job. I think that our community has been blessed. I think about the dads who, before we developed the Saints Youth Organization, how much work and planning and organizing had to be done, and our kids were just so spread out. And it's just been a game changer that we have this opportunity for them for football and cheer. And again, I think it's positively impacted not just those sports, but our school culture overall. And these are volunteer positions, unpaid, a lot of time that you're putting in, really just for the betterment of these kids, and it's awesome to be able to see, and we're getting the fruits of that labor. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's we've seen the connection of the community, and I think that it's probably the ripple effects out into all the other sports really are kind of happening with the football roster being able to be big and be the whole grade.
Yeah.
We oftentimes see amongst each grade like them talking about forming basketball teams, talking about what are you doing for soccer, etc. Like, so it really has been awesome to watch the connection of our entire community.
Yep. That's cool. Absolutely.
Well, Rob, thank you for joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, hit us up on theathleticsoffice@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Thanks.